Today's lesson is Can Seaweed Farming Save the World? Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
Hello, I'm Kiki.
And today we're going to be talking about seaweed and how maybe we can produce more of it to save the world. That's kind of an interesting concept. First of all, though, I'd like to talk about seaweed itself. Are you a fan of seaweed, Kiki?
I like dried seaweed, but I don't like kelp, which is the not dried seaweed. And also, I like it when it's thin. If it's thick, like in Japanese food or in Guangdongzhou, I don't really like that.
Me neither. If it's kind of soft and mushy, I don't really like it, but I do like the crispy kind of dry seaweed. That stuff is very tasty. That's the kind they wrap sushi with in Japanese restaurants. But we're talking more in terms of how seaweed farming could possibly save the world. If farmers produce more seaweed and people eat more seaweed, it might help prevent global warming and things like that. We'll find out what this is all about in just a couple of seconds. So let's introduce our topic now with the first paragraph. Let's listen first.
Can seaweed farming save the world? More than 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water, and this vast expanse of water may hold the key to the future of our planet in the form of seaweed. Seaweed, which includes red, green, and brown algae, is commonly found in oceans and plays a crucial role in various marine ecosystems.
大家好，标题中我们来介绍名词 expanse， 它的意思是广阔区域或是辽阔。例如 Nothing can grow in this expanse of plateau， 这片广袤的高原寸草不生。又或者说 All around us was an expanse of calm blue ocean， 广阔平静的蓝色大海环绕在我们周围。再来我们看到片语 hold the key to 名词或是 hold the key to 动词 ing， 它的意思是掌握点点点的关键。例如 Reviewing what you learned every day holds the key to good grades， 复习每天所学的内容是掌握好成绩的关键。再举一个例子His unique perception and courage holds the key to creating a successful business. 他独特的洞察力和勇气是事业成功的关键。下一个是形容词 crucial， 意思是至关重要的或是关键性的。例如 Several crucial parts were missing from the device. 那台装置里有好几个重要零件不见了。再举一个例子 Police found a crucial piece of evidence at the crime scene. 警方在犯罪现场找到一件关键的证物。
Okay, so again, the question is, can seaweed farming save the world? And of course, we're told that the world is in big trouble because of global warming or because of climate change. So we're always trying to find ways to reverse the heating up of the atmosphere. And now someone has suggested that we eat more seaweed that might help us prevent ourselves from destroying ourselves.
So after listening to the first paragraph, it starts off saying more than 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water. And this vast expanse of water may hold the key to the future of our planet in the form of seaweed. So we know that a large amount of the Earth is made up of water. And you think we have this global warming, but we have so much water. How can we use water to keep these rising temperatures down? And somebody has suggested that seaweed might hold the key. Seaweed might be the answer to all of our problems. Now, when you hold the key to something, it's basically to have control of something or to have the answer to something. And in this case, somebody has suggested seaweed might be the answer. And also we have the word expanse. Expanse basically just means a large area that is just very hard to put into numbers because it's so big and it's wide and continuous.
Right, so we have a vast expanse, like the vast expanse of space, for example, the vast expanse of Earth's oceans. And yes, indeed, this vast expanse of water may hold the key to the future of our planet if you hold the key to something, well, yeah, it could mean you're holding a key and you want to open the door, which is locked. But in this particular case, it means it is crucial. It is very important to have this thing. And of course, without this thing, we may not have a very good future on our planet Earth. So yes, indeed, the expanse of water may hold the key to the future of our planet. It may be very useful to help save us from ourselves.
Seaweed, which includes red, green, and brown algae, is commonly found in oceans and plays a crucial role in various marine ecosystems. So, in Asian culture, we eat a lot of seaweed, but it turns out that there are lots of different types of seaweed and that I never thought or I never knew that seaweed was actually a type of algae. So what is an algae? Usually when we think of algae, they are these non-flowering plants that grow in the water. Sometimes in fish tanks, you'll see these green little vegetation on the glass or on stones. That is what algae is. And usually they are single-celled plants. But it turns out that seaweed is actually also a type of algae.
Yeah, I think of algae as being in the oceans or in bodies of water, and they're just like plants, but they don't have flowers. And yes, they could be single-celled as well. And different kinds of seaweed are considered algae. Be careful there. Algae is the plural form and alga is the singular, although you almost never hear people use the word alga because they're so darn small. We always refer to algae in the plural. So again, seaweed includes red, green, and brown algae. And, of course, that seaweed is commonly found in oceans and plays a crucial role in various marine ecosystems. So, again, we're talking about seaweed in general. If you talk about different kinds of seaweed, you could add an S to it, seaweeds. But seaweed is usually used in this form here to talk about all seaweed in general. And yes, indeed, it's common in the oceans, and it plays a very critical, crucial, key role in various marine ecosystems. It's very important to have seaweed in the ocean. If you don't have it, then we'll have big trouble in the oceans with the marine ecosystems. And if we have the word marine, we know we're talking about something that has to do with the ocean.
So seaweed is very important and it affects the marine ecosystem. So an ecosystem is basically a system of living things that help each other survive in nature. And in this case, the marine ecosystem heavily relies on healthy seaweed because seaweed can bring lots of benefits to the different living aquatic animals that are living in each ecosystem or each marine ecosystem. Okay, that brings us to the end of part 1. Let's listen to part 2.
Seaweed requires very little to grow and can thrive on only sunlight and seawater, which has led increasing numbers of people to recognize its potential as a food crop. In fact, the idea of seaweed farming is hardly new, especially in Asia, where seaweed is widely used as a food source. Whether wrapped around sushi, eaten as a snack, or boiled in soups, seaweed is already consumed by hundreds of millions of people on a regular basis.
第二部分我们看到动词 thrive 这个字有茁壮成长或是兴旺繁荣的意思。例如 Many plants thrive in the island's warm tropical climate 许多植物在这座岛的温暖热带气候下茂盛生长。或是 Business has thrived in the city since the government opened a technology zone 自从政府设立科技园区后该城市的商业活动蓬勃发展。接下来是 potential这个名词为潜力或是可能性。例如 Thomas has a lot of athletic potential and the basketball coach is interested in having him try out for the team. Thomas 有很大的运动潜力，篮球教练有意让他参加球队选拔。又或者说 Jack saw the potential in this proposal and is willing to support it. Jack 发现了这个提案的潜力，并愿意支持它。再来是片语 on a regular basis意思是经常的、规律的或是定期的。我们可以说 Edward is in good shape because he goes to the gym on a regular basis. Edward 体格很好，因为他经常上健身房。 再造一个句子 I visit the dentist on a regular basis. 我会定期去看牙医。
Okay, so again, we're talking about seaweed, and we're trying to answer the question, can seaweed farming save the world? Now, seaweed requires very little to grow and can thrive on only sunlight and seawater, which has led increasing numbers of people to recognize its potential as a food crop. So here we're talking about seaweed, and if you want to grow seaweed, it's not that difficult. It can thrive on only sunlight and seawater. So if something thrives, it is very active, it is very healthy. Lots of people move to cities so they can thrive, they can find a good job and make some money, as opposed to staying in their hometown in the country and maybe finding a job in a grocery store or something, and you're not going to thrive with that. But yes, indeed, if you want to have an exciting career, you could thrive in the city. And in this particular case, seaweed just needs a little sunlight and some seawater to grow, and so it doesn't really need a lot of fertilizer. And so lots of people have recognized the potential of seaweed as a food crop.
People recognize that its potential as a food crop, which means that they see that they don't need a lot of land to grow this seaweed because we're already very scarce in the agricultural land that can grow veggies or other types of crops. So seaweed, you can grow it underwater. And they see its potential. And when somebody sees something or someone's potential, they are able to see the possibilities for something to be successful or for something to be turned into something useful or something great. So in this case, people recognize that seaweed can actually become a main source of food for people to consume.
Right. For example, my Uncle Harry has a son, Joe, and he is very sensitive about sounds. He has a good ear for sounds, so I think he's got a lot of potential to become a famous world-class musician in the future if he just applies himself. And again, lots of people have recognized the potential of seafood as a food crop because it is so easy to grow. It can thrive on only sunlight and seawater. And in fact, the idea of seaweed farming is hardly new, especially in Asia, where seaweed is widely used as a food source. So yeah, you all know about this here in Taiwan because seaweed has been part of your diet here in Asia for a very long time. It has been used as a food source for a very long time, so it's not a new idea. And whether wrapped around sushi, eaten as a snack, or boiled in soups, seaweed is already consumed by hundreds of millions of people on a regular basis. So this sentence tells us how seaweed is consumed, whether it's this or whether it's that. Therefore, it is something else. So yes, indeed, it can be wrapped around sushi. You can have it as a snack. You can boil it in soup. So therefore, it's already consumed by lots and lots of people on a regular basis, which means often.
On a regular basis is when something that happens or occurs at specific times, or in this case, on a regular basis. So a lot of people in Asia, they will eat seaweed almost daily for some cultures. An example sentence on how to use a regular basis is, I live far away from my parents, but I still call them on a regular basis. So even though I live away from my parents, I still make sure that I check in on them and I call them regularly. Or I always call them on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And that occurs on a specific time.
Right. And you could talk about different sorts of times based on how often they occur. Like, for example, I bathe on a daily basis, for example, or I climb the mountains on a weekly basis. I do it once a week. You get the idea. And yes, indeed, lots of people eat seaweed every day. They eat it on a regular basis. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson. Here comes the third part.
Seaweed is rich in protein and various other nutrients. For people who choose not to eat meat or are unable to obtain meat, protein alternatives are essential. While many people turn to soy or pea protein to fill this gap, others are looking to algae, particularly because farming these valuable organisms is less damaging to the environment than farming soybeans or peas.
第三部分先看到动词 obtain， 它是获得或是取得的意思。例如 You need to obtain permission before you can enter the room. 你需要获得许可才能进入那个房间。或者 My father has been trying to obtain a copy of that rare book, but he still can't find it. 我爸爸一直设法得到那本真本，但他还是找不到。最后看到 alternative， 这个名词为替代选项或是可供选择的事物。例如 When traffic is heavy, the MRT is a good alternative to use instead of your car. 当交通状况很糟时，捷运就是一个代替车子的好方案。再看一个例子 When she ran out of gas, Sarah had no alternative but to leave her car on the side of the road. 当汽油用完时 Sarah 别无选择，只好把车子留在路边。
All right, let's wrap things up with the third part and find out what are some good things that seaweed can bring to us. Seaweed is rich in protein and various other nutrients. So it has a lot of protein and other types of nutrients. Nutrients are basically substances that provide nourishment that is important for life or growth. So we need to eat certain things that gives us nourishment or things that gives us minerals and the essential vitamins that need to help us thrive and grow so our bodies can stay healthy.
Right, so is rich in here just means it has a lot of protein. It's also got other nutrients like vitamins and things like that. And for people who choose not to eat meat or are unable to obtain meat, protein alternatives are essential. So yes, indeed, we do need to have protein in our diet. It is essential. It is necessary. We can't do without it. Some people may not want to eat meat, and meat, of course, is a great source of protein. So vegetarians will need to obtain protein from another source. To obtain something means to get something. So again, we've got vegetarians who don't want to eat meat, or we've got people who just can't get meat or they can't obtain meat. It's hard to find meat. They have to eat mostly plants and things like that. So we are looking for alternatives to protein, which means other choices.
For some people, obtaining meat might also be very expensive.
True.
So they need alternative forms of protein. So what are some other alternatives that people can get protein or obtain protein? While many people turn to soy or pea protein to fill this gap, others are looking to algae, particularly because farming these valuable organisms is less damaging to the environment than farming soybeans or peas.
So evidently, if you grow soybeans or if you grow peas, you might be damaging the environment to a certain extent. And there are some people who think that growing seaweed in the sea or wherever will actually not be so harmful to the environment. And again, we're talking about seaweed being a good alternative to protein. And it probably has a lot of other nutrients as well.
Right. And since algae grows very easily and they grow very fast as well, it's probably a better choice than growing soybeans or peas because we know that algae, they grow in just vast amounts and they can grow very quickly. So this is a good source and they can produce a lot for people instead of peas and soybeans where they need to use a lot of farmland, and by having more farmland, we keep harming the nutrients in the soil and things like that. So this is probably a pretty good alternative to find protein.
It's worth thinking about, and it does remind me that I used to be vegetarian. I'm not so much anymore, but of course, when I was a vegetarian, I needed to be concerned about where my protein was coming from, so I had to eat a lot of beans and things like that. So if I were still a vegetarian, I may consider eating more seaweed. But again, I only like seaweed in certain forms. I like the dry, crispy kind of seaweed and not the soft and mushy kind. But I suppose in order to save the planet, we should all pitch in and eat more seaweed. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分的最后一句有提到，海藻在各种不同的海洋生态系统中发挥了至关重要的作用。文中是用到 play a crucial role 来表达发挥至关重要的作用。好，那这边要介绍的是 play a role 或是 play a part 的用法。当我们用 play a role 或是 play a part 加上 in 再加上戏剧作品，可以表达说在某个戏剧作品当中饰演一角。那么 role 或是 part 前面可以加入形容词，像 Brad played a small part in the film， 也就是说 Brad 在那部电影里面饰演一个小角色。好，另外也可以用 play a role 或是 play a part加上 in 再加名词或动名词，表达说对什么有影响，在什么方面起作用，扮演什么样的角色。这时候 role 或是 part 的前方常用形容词 important 重要的， major 主要的， key 关键的， crucial 决定性的，非常重要的等等。举例来说， Jeremy played a key role in last night's game。 Jeremy 在昨晚的比赛当中扮演关键角色。好，那么课文第二部分他提到说，海藻养殖的想法并不新颖，尤其是在亚洲。那我们看到 Asia 后方他接了逗号 where seaweed is widely used as a food source。 这里的 where 相当于 in which， 那这个 which 是用来代指 Asia， 所以这个关系子句呢是在补充说明在亚洲，在那里海藻被广泛作为食物来源。好，那我们这边就来介绍一下 where 当关系副词的用法。Where 当关系副词相当于介系词加 which， 像是 at which 或是 in which 等等，那可以引导关系子句来修饰或补述说明跟地点相关的先行词。好，那我们先来看到第一种用法是当先行词它是明确特定的地点时，我们就不用限定它的范围了。那这时候关系子句的功能是要对先行词做补充说明，所以要用逗号把这个补充说明的部分跟主要子句隔开来，那这是属于非限定用法。像课文就是这个用法嘛，它在 where 的前面有加上逗号，把这个补充说明的关系子句隔开来了。好，那补充第二个用法是当先行词它是非特定不明确的地点时，我们就要用限定用法， where 的前面不加逗号，那这时候关系子句是用来限定先行词的范围。例如This is a place where you can feel a sense of belonging。 这是一个让你能有归属感的地方。好，那这个先行词 a place 是一个地方嘛，它是不明确的地点，那我们后面就要紧接着关系子句来限定它的范围，表达是一个让你能有归属感的地方。好，那以上就是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Crucial。If you want to complete the experiment successfully, it's crucial that you follow the instructions carefully. Marine. Georgia is planning to study marine biology when she goes to university. Thrive. With proper care and attention, we expect our new business to thrive. Potential. The study results suggest that the drug has great potential as a heart medicine. Nutrient. In addition to being delicious, mangoes provide a lot of important vitamins and nutrients. Obtain. Scott couldn't obtain his parents' permission to go to the party. Alternative. We need to consider all of our alternatives before making a final decision.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Kiki.
I am Roger.
See you next time.